Billionaire visits her son's grave and finds a black waitress crying with a child. She was shocked. A thin November drizzle cloaked the cemetery in somber grey, and Victoria Blackwood froze at the sight that would alter her life forever. Standing before Adrian's marble headstone was a young black woman in a waitress uniform, clutching a small boy, both weeping as though the earth itself had abandoned them. Victoria's steps faltered, her gloved fingers tightening around a bouquet of white roses. At 56, heir to the Blackwood Industries fortune, she had never laid eyes on these two. Yet something in the woman's posture and the boy's delicate face sent her heart racing with dread. "Excuse me," she said, her voice slicing through the quiet air. "This is a private visit. You shouldn't be here." The young woman lifted her face, tear-stained eyes meeting Victoria's. "I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone would come today." Her voice quivered, yet there was a quiet strength in it that caught Victoria off guard. "Who are you?" Victoria pressed, her instincts as sharp as in any boardroom negotiation. "And why are you mourning at my son's grave?" The boy, no older than 5, lifted his gaze and Victoria nearly staggered. Those bright green eyes, unmistakable, the very eyes she had seen in Adrian and in her own reflection for decades. "My name is Jasmine Washington," the woman said, brushing away tears. "And this is Tyler. I work at Bell's Diner downtown. I come here every month because—" she hesitated, looking at the boy, "because Adrian meant everything to us." Victoria's world lurched. Adrian had died 3 years earlier in a car crash at 29, stealing away every hope she carried for the Blackwood name. She had dissected his life afterward, searching for hidden meaning, but she had found no evidence of a serious relationship, let alone a child. "Important how?" she demanded, her tone low. Rain pattered harder against the stones, yet none of them moved. Jasmine held her gaze with unexpected courage. "Because Tyler is his son, and because I promised Adrian I would raise him no matter what." The flowers slipped from Victoria's grip, scattering across the wet ground. For 3 years she had believed her lineage ended with Adrian, that the Blackwood name would die with him. And now, a grandson, half hers, half of a waitress, stood alive before her. But there was a guardedness in Jasmine's expression, a shadow behind her confession, as if her story carried layers beyond a secret child. What Victoria could not yet see was that this was only the first thread of a tangled web of deception and betrayal woven far closer to home than she imagined, and that Jasmine's quiet strength would soon upend everything in her carefully protected world. If this tale of hidden family ties and long-buried truths moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more stories, where chance encounters uncover shocking twists. 2 weeks later, Victoria's private library had been transformed into a war room. Stacks of investigative files sprawled across the carved mahogany table, each page unraveling fragments of Jasmine Washington's life that unsettled her further. Single, no relatives traced, working nearly 70 hours across 2 jobs to raise her child. Victoria muttered as she scanned the pages. A tiny apartment in the poorest part of town, no higher education beyond high school. Her assistant, David Chen, stood silently by the leather chair. He had watched Victoria dismantle corporations with icy detachment, but never had he seen her so shaken. "What about the child's mother?" Victoria asked, her piercing blue gaze locked on a blurred photograph of Tyler playing at a worn playground. "This is where it becomes unusual," David replied, opening another file. "There's no birth certificate, no hospital registration, no official trail of who carried him. It's as though his biological mother never existed." Victoria's fingers drummed against the mahogany desk, a gesture her board members had come to dread since Adrian's death 4 years earlier. She had dissected every corner of his life afterward, searching for answers, searching for justification, yet no trace of lasting relationships had ever appeared. "Arrange a meeting with this Jasmine," Victoria ordered, pronouncing the name as if it belonged to another language. "My office tomorrow, 2 p.m. The following afternoon, Jasmine entered the headquarters of Blackwood Industries in her only thrift shop suit. The 61-story tower loomed like a test, its mirrored walls reflecting a version of herself she hardly recognized. Victoria received her at the top floor, the city sprawling endlessly behind glass. It was a display of dominance, and both women understood it. Sit, Victoria instructed, gesturing toward a chair positioned deliberately lower than her own. We must discuss Tyler. Jasmine remained standing. I'll stand, thank you, as you like. Victoria opened a file and spoke with cool precision. I've had you investigated, Miss Washington. 2 jobs, little income, conditions unfit for a child. Tyler is safe and loved, Jasmine replied, her tone steady. Victoria's smile was thin and cold. I'm sure you try your best, but a Blackwood heir deserves more than scraps. He deserves everything wealth can provide. And what exactly are you proposing? Jasmine asked. Victoria slid a check across the polished desk, $250,000 for starters. Tyler comes to live with me, receives the education Adrian would have chosen, the opportunities only I can offer. You'd still see him. Weekends, holidays. Jasmine stared at the paper as if it burned. You're offering to buy my child. He isn't yours, Victoria shot back, her mask of restraint slipping. He's my grandson, my bloodline. And frankly, a waitress barely into her 30s cannot provide what this family can. Jasmine let out a laugh devoid of joy. Victoria, may I call you that? You want to know about family? For 3 years, Tyler has called me Mom. I'm the one who wakes when he cries. I teach him his letters. I read him to sleep. That is family. Victoria rose, towering over her. Charming words, but reality is cruel. You scrape by, half your wages swallowed by rent. He deserves elite schools, international travel, doors opened by influence. And he deserves unconditional love, Jasmine countered, the kind you clearly failed to give Adrian. The air froze. Victoria stiffened as though slapped. How dare you? Adrian told me, Jasmine said quietly, her voice like a blade. About the missed games, the birthdays where you sent assistants with wrapped gifts, the dinners where you never showed. You don't want Tyler out of love. You want him to fix your guilt. Victoria's fists clenched. You know nothing about me. No, Jasmine answered. But I knew your son, and I know exactly why he kept Tyler a secret from you. With deliberate calm, Jasmine tore the check in 2, the halves fluttering to the carpet like discarded petals. Tyler isn't for sale. Then this will be resolved the hard way, Victoria said, her voice darkening. I have power you can't fathom, attorneys, investigators, government contacts. I can prove that a single mother without a degree, struggling in poverty, isn't fit to raise him. For the first time, Jasmine smiled, and the confidence in it unsettled Victoria. You assume I'm just a poor waitress you can push around, she said softly. But there are things about me, about Tyler, about Adrian, truths you haven't uncovered yet. And when you do, she paused, her eyes glinting with a resolve that caught the billionaire off guard. Let's just say your investigators aren't nearly as sharp as you believe. With that, she strode to the door, turning only once to glance back. And Victoria, if you want to talk about Tyler again, it will be on my terms, not yours. When Jasmine left, Victoria remained rooted in her office, fragments of the torn check still scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. In decades of negotiations, no one had ever walked away holding the advantage. Until now, what unsettled her even more was the waitress's unshakable certainty, as if she carried knowledge powerful enough to render Victoria's threats meaningless. For the first time in her life, Victoria Blackwood felt as though she were the one under scrutiny, examined by someone unimpressed with her wealth or her armor of power. 3 days later, her phone rang with news that rattled her to the core. Richard Thornton, her trusted attorney of nearly 20 years, spoke with an unease she had never heard before. Victoria, I need to inform you about the custody matter, he began. I received a call this morning. Miss Washington has legal counsel. Victoria let out a sharp laugh, tapping her fingers against the desk. With what resources? Some underpaid public defender, no doubt. Richard hesitated. It's Morrison, Caldwell and Pierce. Victoria nearly dropped her cup. That firm ranked among the top 3 in the nation, renowned for landmark victories in civil rights and for never losing a high-profile case. That's absurd. Why would they involve themselves with a diner waitress? I can't say, Richard admitted. But it's worse than that. They've already filed a petition preemptively, arguing that any forced removal of the boy would amount to legal abduction on the basis of socioeconomic discrimination. Victoria slammed the phone down so hard the receiver cracked. Jasmine had played her opening hand, and it was far stronger than Victoria had ever anticipated. Meanwhile, in Jasmine's modest apartment, a gathering was underway that Victoria could never have imagined. Seated around the small room were figures of influence. Dr. Michael Chun, law professor at Columbia, investigative journalist Amanda Torres, celebrated for exposing corporate corruption, and at the center, an elegant woman in her mid-50s, whom Jasmine greeted with warmth and reverence. "Aunt Helen, I'm so glad you came," Jasmine said, embracing her. "I know the flight from Chicago wasn't easy." Helen Washington's eyes sparkled with the same fire Jasmine had shown in Victoria's office. "When you told me the time had come, I cleared my schedule immediately. We've been preparing for this day for 3 years." On the floor, Tyler played quietly, unaware of the gravity of the moment. Dr. Chun opened a heavy folder stuffed with records and photographs. "Jasmine, are you absolutely sure? Once this begins, there's no turning back. Victoria Blackwood commands enormous influence and won't hesitate to unleash it all." Jasmine's voice was calm, resolute. "I've been ready for this since Adrian's funeral. Every night class, every law book I studied, every contact I built, it was all for this, to protect Tyler and to keep Adrian's memory alive." Amanda Torres glanced up from her laptop, her tone impressed. "The material you've gathered is extraordinary. 3 years of documented corruption at Blackwood Industries, political bribes, labor exploitation, tax manipulation. It's enough to shake foundations." Helen walked to the window, gazing at the modest skyline. "Victoria believes her wealth makes her untouchable. She has no idea that my niece has tracked every misstep, every backroom deal, every evasion scheme she's tried to bury." Jasmine turned back to Dr. Chun. "Aunt Helen has taught business law at the University of Chicago for 3 decades, and she's been guiding me from the start. She's the one who taught me that knowledge is the only weapon the powerful can never buy or steal." Jasmine's phone buzzed, Victoria's name flashing across the screen. The moment she answered, the billionaire's voice exploded through the line. "What kind of game are you running? Morrison, Caldwell, and Pierce. How does a waitress get a firm like that?" Jasmine calmly set the phone on speaker so the entire room could hear. "Victoria, I warned you there were things about me you hadn't uncovered." "I don't care what tricks you're pulling," Victoria snapped. "Tyler is my grandson, and I have limitless means to take him." Jasmine glanced at her allies, a quiet smile forming. "Unlimited resources, you're assuming wealth is the only form of influence. But what if there's something far stronger? And what would that be?" Victoria sneered. "The truth," Jasmine replied. A harsh laugh came through the receiver. "Truth doesn't pay the retainer of elite attorneys," Jasmine agreed. "But truth about your fraudulent contracts, your bribes to public officials, your empire built on corruption, that kind of truth is priceless to certain people." The silence that followed was telling. "You're bluffing," Victoria muttered at last, though her tone carried less certainty than before. Jasmine lifted the phone toward Amanda Torres. "Amanda Torres of the Metropolitan Journal would like to comment." "Good afternoon, Miss Blackwood," Amanda said crisply. "I'm finalizing a feature on corporate misconduct and wanted to give you a chance to respond before publication." The line went dead as Victoria disconnected without a word. Helen's lips curved into a proud smile. "Jasmine, you've learned well. Never strike from the front when you can flank." Dr. Chun snapped his briefcase shut. "The legal petition is airtight. There are rulings that establish economic disparity alone cannot justify stripping custody," Amanda added, "and I have 3 years' worth of documents. Shell corporations, payoffs to politicians, hidden environmental crimes, enough to obliterate her public image." Jasmine lifted Tyler into her arms, the boy dozing peacefully. "What Victoria doesn't understand," she said softly, "is that this isn't just about Tyler. It's about dismantling a system that treats money as a license to destroy families." Helen placed a hand on her niece's shoulder. "Your mother would be proud. She always said education was the only inheritance no one could take away." Jasmine's eyes softened. Aunt Helen raised me after my parents passed. She taught me it's not where you start, it's where you're headed. And sometimes to protect the people you love, you have to go to war. The phone rang again, this time Richard Thornton's voice on the line. Miss Washington, my client would like to discuss a settlement. $500,000 and restricted visitation. Jasmine met the eyes of those gathered, every head shaking in unison. Mr. Thornton, she said firmly, inform your client that Tyler is not for sale at any price, and tell her she has 48 hours to retract every legal threat against us. If not, on Monday morning, the Metropolitan Journal will release a full expose of Blackwood Industries' corrupt practices, and I have no doubt the IRS will be very interested in what we've uncovered. When the call ended, Amanda looked up from her laptop. Jasmine, are you ready? Once this is out, Victoria will unleash everything she has. Jasmine gazed down at her sleeping son. Amanda, I've been preparing 3 years for this day. Victoria thinks her fortune makes her untouchable, but she's never faced someone who spent years studying her every move. Dr. Chun rose, gathering his notes. Our filings go in tomorrow. Legally, the case is on solid ground. Helen kissed Jasmine's forehead gently. Remember, child, wealth is fleeting, but the truth endures. That night, with Tyler tucked safely in bed, Jasmine unlocked a trunk at the foot of her room. Inside lay her secret arsenal. Diplomas from Knight Law School, certificates from advanced management programs, letters of recommendation from esteemed professors, and beneath them, a photograph of herself with Adrian and a fair-skinned young woman, a photograph Victoria had never seen. The image that revealed not only the true story of Tyler's mother, but the reason Jasmine had armed herself so carefully for this inevitable confrontation. Victoria Blackwood was about to discover that underestimating someone can be the most costly mistake of all, and that the sweetest revenge rarely comes from brute force, but from patience, meticulous planning, and the perfect moment to unveil truths others would pay any price to keep hidden. What Victoria still didn't realize was that the custody fight over Tyler had only been the opening move in a much larger strategy, one Jasmine had been orchestrating since the night Adrian died. A plan set to expose secrets capable of shattering not just Victoria's name, but the entire empire she had built on deception. On Monday morning, Victoria awoke to 38 missed calls and the sound of her assistant pacing outside her door. David entered, clutching a tablet as though it might burn him. "You need to see this," he said, his voice trembling. The headline from the Metropolitan Journal glared across the screen. Empire of Lies. Leaked records expose decades of corruption at Blackwood Industries. Victoria's knees weakened. Beneath the headline sprawled pages of scanned evidence, rigged contracts, illicit transfers to politicians, offshore laundering trails. Each page was another nail in the coffin of her reputation. Where did they get this? She whispered, scrolling through images of secret meetings she thought had been buried, transcripts of calls she had believed erased forever. Her phone rang. Richard Thornton. "Victoria, it's catastrophic," he said flatly. "The IRS has executed warrants. The FBI is en route to your residence, and the SEC has frozen all Blackwood Industries trading." Victoria slammed the phone down, then dialed Jasmine with shaking hands. "You," she screamed when the call connected. "You've destroyed me." "Good morning, Victoria," Jasmine answered, her tone serene. "I assume you've seen the headlines. I'll annihilate you. I'll pour every dollar I have into—" "What funds?" Jasmine cut in smoothly. "From what I'm watching here on the news, your accounts were frozen 20 minutes ago." Victoria stumbled to her computer, frantically entering passwords. "Access denied. Access denied. Access denied. This can't be happening. There's something my investigators didn't mention," Jasmine continued. "Amanda Torres doesn't work alone. She's part of a network specializing in financial crimes. Every forged contract you've signed in the past 2 decades is catalogued." Victoria turned toward the television, where cameras showed Blackwood employees filing out of headquarters carrying boxes, their careers collapsing live before the nation. Reporters declared her legacy tainted. "Why?" Victoria croaked. "Why are you doing this to me?" Jasmine's voice was steady. Because you never asked who Tyler's mother was. If you had, you would have discovered her name, Jessica Blackwood. Victoria froze, her blood turning to ice. That's impossible, she rasped. Jessica was Robert Blackwood's daughter, my cousin's child. The same cousin you betrayed back in 1996, Jasmine replied, when you manipulated documents to push him out and seize his shares of the family business. Jessica grew up in poverty because of you. She met Adrian at university. They fell in love, but she kept her identity hidden, terrified you would drive her away just as you had exiled her father. Images crashed through Victoria's memory. Robert's protests, his sudden disappearance from the family, his mention of a daughter she dismissed at the time. Jasmine's tone softened but carried a dagger's edge. Jessica died giving birth to Tyler. Adrian came to me, her best friend, begging me to protect the child. And he also uncovered the truth about what you did to her family. Adrian knew Victoria. He knew, Victoria whispered, her body trembling. He spent his last months gathering evidence of your corruption, Jasmine continued. When he died, he left me everything, documents, recordings, proof, and he made me promise to wait for the right moment. Outside, Victoria saw black FBI vans roll up her driveway, agents stepping onto her property. Her lips trembled. The accident. You mean it wasn't an accident? Jasmine said with chilling calm. Adrian uncovered a laundering network tied to dangerous people you employed to eliminate threats. Those same people silenced him. Your greed killed your own son. The words struck like bullets, and for the first time in her ruthless life, Victoria Blackwood collapsed under the weight of her own sins, realizing that in trying to protect her empire, she had destroyed the only thing that ever truly mattered. Tyler is the last rightful Blackwood, Jasmine continued. Jessica was the legitimate heir to the wealth you stole, and now with your accounts frozen and your empire seized, Tyler finally holds what always belonged to him. Heavy boots thundered up the stairs as firm voices shouted, FBI. You orchestrated this for years, Victoria whispered, finally comprehending the scale of what had unfolded. Adrian taught me patience is the sharpest weapon, Jasmine replied. Every record I gathered, every class I attended, every alliance I built, it was all leading to this. The door burst open and federal agents swarmed the room. Victoria Blackwood, you are under arrest for fraud, laundering, and conspiracy, the lead officer declared as the cuffs snapped shut around her wrists. Through the chaos, Victoria heard Jasmine's voice one last time. Tyler will grow up knowing the truth of his family, and that justice, though delayed, never fails. Cameras broadcast Victoria's arrest live, her downfall watched by millions as the empire she had built on deceit collapsed in a single day. That afternoon, Jasmine sat in the park with Tyler, watching him laugh on the swings. Her phone rang. It was Helen. Child, I saw the broadcast. How do you feel? Like Adrian can finally rest? Jasmine answered softly, her eyes fixed on Tyler's joy. And Tyler, he'll grow knowing his family stood for justice, not revenge. What Victoria had failed to grasp until too late was that Jasmine was not just a waitress with determination. She was the guardian of a stolen inheritance, a woman who had turned quiet years of planning into the most decisive execution of justice the courts had seen. 2 years later, the Millbrook Women's Prison was a world away from the penthouse Victoria once commanded. Clad in standard-issue orange, she worked the laundry for $2.40 an hour, a bitter irony not lost on the guards. Blackwood visitor, a guard barked. Expecting a lawyer or reporter, Victoria was startled to find Jasmine, poised in a tailored navy suit worth more than half a year of prison wages. I came with news, Jasmine said evenly. Tyler has been accepted to Phillips Academy, Adrian's alma mater, full scholarship. For a fleeting moment, pride flickered in Victoria's chest. Why tell me this? Because you are his grandmother. And because Tyler asked me whether people who do wrong can ever change. Jasmine paused. I told him it depends on whether they truly want to. She slid a folder across the table, photographs of Tyler in his new school uniform spilling out. He's learning violin like his father. His teacher says he has a gift. How can you afford this? Victoria asked hoarsely. Jasmine's smile held quiet triumph. The inheritance you robbed from Jessica's family was returned by the courts. Tyler now holds the rightful Blackwood estate. Ironic, isn't it? Victoria closed her eyes in pain. And you, what did you gain from all this? Jasmine rose. The chance to give Tyler what you denied Adrian, a family built on love, not money. And the peace of knowing Jessica and Adrian can finally rest. Is Tyler happy? Victoria asked, her voice breaking. He's loved, Jasmine said simply, and that's all that ever mattered. Outside in their Connecticut lakeside home, Tyler ran through the garden, violin case in hand. Jasmine watched from the porch, an MBA diploma framed behind her. "Mom, can I play for you?" Tyler shouted. "Of course, sweetheart," Jasmine answered, imagining Adrian. Jasmine answered, imagining Adrian's proud smile. Helen visited often, sharing family history that Tyler carried like a torch. "Aunt Helen told me," Jasmine explained to her son, "that the greatest revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, but in building something so beautiful that they regret never being part of it." Tyler grew with the certainty that dignity matters more than wealth, that the world may seem unfair, but persistence and truth always open a path forward. Victoria had once tried to purchase a grandson, but learned too late that family cannot be bought. It is nurtured through love, sacrifice, and presence. She lost everything because she confused power with worth and fortune with meaning. Jasmine's real triumph was not crushing Victoria, but giving Tyler a future where the mistakes of the past would never be repeated, where identity was measured not by skin color or a bank account, but by integrity and strength. Victoria had tried to use money to take Tyler, but Jasmine proved that true love has no price, and that patience, knowledge, and courage will always outlast arrogance. And greed. Have you ever faced someone who tried to belittle your dreams because of where you came from? Share your story in the comments and subscribe for more tales that show that true family is forged with love, not wealth.